she asked, holding her tightly against her chest and making a comforting rocking movement. "Are your mum and dad at home?" Adele didn't know how she replied. All she was aware of in that moment was the rasp of the woman's coat against her cheek and the feeling she was going to be sick. But she must have answered her questions before she broke free to vomit by the curb, for later, after the arrival of the ambulance and the police, she heard the same woman informing them that the sister of the child who had been run over was Adele Talbot, and she lived at 47 Charlton Street. Yet, in the time until the police and the ambulance arrived, Adele wasn't aware of the faces of those around her, what they said to her, or even the biting cold wind. She felt only her own anguish, saw only the golden glow of streetlights picking out Pamela's blonde hair fluttering in the wind on the black, wet road, and heard only the noise of car horns honking impatiently. Euston belonged to her and Pamela. Maybe to others it was the dirty and dangerous hub of London which people were forced to pass through on their way to other safer and more attractive parts of the city. But to Adele it had always felt as harmless as a park. Charlton Street was right between Euston and St Pancras, and the railway stations were like her personal theatres, the passengers' characters in a drama. She was always taking Pamela into them, particularly when it was cold or wet, and she would make up stories about the people they saw there to entertain her. A woman in a fur coat, tripping alongside a porter carrying her big suitcases, was a countess. A young couple kissing passionately were eloping. Sometimes they saw children travelling alone with a label pinned to their coat, and Adele would make up some fantastic adventure story involving wicked stepmothers, castles in Scotland, and treasure chests full of money. At home, there was always an atmosphere. Their mother would sit for hours in sullen silence, barely acknowledging her children or her husband's presence. She had always been the same, so Adele just accepted it, but had learned to read the danger signs which preceded the eruptions of wild rage, and got herself and Pamela out of there as quickly as possible. These rages could be terrifying, for their mother would fling anything that came to hand, scream abuse, and, more often than not, lash out at Adele. Adele tried to convince herself that the reason the full force of her mother's anger was always directed at her, rather than Pamela, was just because she was the elder. But deep down, she knew it was because Mum hated her for some reason. Pamela had sensed it too, and she had always tried to make up for it. If she got any money from their mother, she always shared it with Adele. When she got her new red coat for Christmas, she'd been embarrassed because Adele hadn't got one too. In her little way, she'd done her best to make amends. With her sunny smile, her generosity and sense of fun, Pamela had made Adele's life bearable. Now, as she stood there crying helplessly, wanting an adult to put their arms around her and reassure her Pamela wasn't dead, merely unconscious, Adele was all too aware that if her sister was really gone for good, then she might as well be dead too. A burly young policeman took Adele's hand as Pamela was lifted into the ambulance. As they laid her on the stretcher, they put the blanket right over her face. Unspoken confirmation that she was really dead. "I'm so sorry," the policeman said gently, then bent down so his face was on her level. "I'm PC Mitchell," he went on. "Me and the sergeant will take you home in a minute. We have to tell your mum and dad about the accident and get you to tell us exactly what happened." It was only then that Adele became afraid for herself. From the moment she'd heard the squeal of car brakes, her mind had been centred entirely on Pamela. All her thoughts and emotions were single track. Nothing else existed but her sister's little body on the ground and what they were to each other. But at the mention of her parents, Adele was suddenly terrified. "I can't go home," she blurted out, clutching the policeman's hand in fear. "They'll say it was my fault." "Of course they won't," PC Mitchell said disbelievingly, and rubbed her cold hand in his two big ones. "Accidents like this can happen to anyone. You're only a kid yourself." "If I'd just been a bit quicker," she sobbed out. His big, kindly face full of concern for her was only a further reminder of how little her parents cared for her. "I ran all the way, but she was already by the road when I got up here." "Your mum and dad will understand," he said.